A new report from Canada highlights how China learned from how Sikh leaders applied voter pressure on Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. This report by the Chinese set the blueprint for how the Chinese diaspora could learn from what the Khalistanis had been doing in Canada. Now, this story was broken by a Canadian website, The Bureau. Now, this website, The Bureau, accessed the WeChat account of the All China Federation of Returned Overseas Chinese, or ACFROC. This is important because this year, the Canadian government has established a public inquiry into foreign interference, these allegations that China and India interfered in Canada's elections in 2019 and 2021. Now, the first report of this commission, as released this year, called the Foreign Interference a Stain on the two elections. And that, interestingly, China was the main perpetrator of this interference. Joining me to discuss the state of play in Canada and these allegations of foreign interference are Indo-Canadian blogger Kushal Mehra, Ambassador Manju Seth, former Indian diplomat, and Dr. Tilak Jha. Kushal, break down for us what exactly is going on in Canada right now. This turmoil that Canada has been thrown in with these allegations of foreign interference, where clearly report after report mentions that the Chinese have been interfering in at least two elections, and the Trudeau government is trying to distract attention away from these very grievous allegations by pinning the blame on India. Tell us what's going on there right now.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me over, Sandeep. As far as the Canadian political parlance is concerned, we have to be very careful when we keep talking about the word foreign interference itself, because Canada is now gone into the unique category of non-serious countries, in my opinion, and it breaks my heart as I say that, because I actually am very fond of that country.
Yes.
I like Canada. I love living there half of the year, and I love living in India half of the year.
Yeah, but I mean, Kushal, Donald Trump just called it the 51st state of the United States, and Justin Trudeau, the Governor General of the 51st state of this thing. I mean, you're right. In a sense, Canada seems to have dropped into the non-serious category. But I mean, there's serious, repercussions for India's foreign policy, given the kind of bile and, mudslinging that comes our way from Canada of all countries. But yeah, please continue.
Yeah, so foreign interference is a terminology that has been, I like to use this word. The story of Canada is death by 1,000 acronyms, right?
Yes.
By the time you figure out 2 acronyms, they will throw 3 more at you. By the time you figure all 5 of them, they have 100 ready for you.
Right.
So it's terminological terrorism that Canada is an expert at.
Right.
The Canadians, you have to see, Canada is when California goes on steroids.
Right.
That's what Canada is.
Right.
So Canada is a version of California. So they are very woke in their terminologies.
Yes.
They're very woke in their looking. So you have to break Canada down from that point of view.
Right.
When you understand Canada is California on steroids, everything falls in place.
Right.
So for them, this is very normal what they're doing. They and the Chinese interference, Sandeep, has been going on for a long time.
Yes.
And I have to give, I have to take some credit here. 3 years ago, it was the great Indo-Canadian journalist, Balraj Dale, on my very podcast, had broken this and had said, Bhaiya, they have learned from the Khalistanis. It was the Khalistanis who started it in the 1980s.
Who
where
set
they
the
found
trend.
the loopholes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So, Balraj sir has been talking about this for the longest time. He's like, the Chinese learned from the Khalistanis, and I'm glad that the Chinese have openly admitted it. So Sam Cooper has been covering this bit for a while. Listen, the Chinese interference in Canada is very serious.
Yes.
There are 41 members of parliament, allegedly, that the Chinese were targeting to put in the parliament. They succeeded in around 20% of them. That is around 8 to 9 members of parliament actually got in that were actually going to do literally what the Chinese want. The reason they keep doing the Indian thing is because it's the perfect smokescreen to take attention away from Justin Trudeau's failure. But Sandeep, we need to ask the question to the Canadians. Have you ever applied for a Canadian visa, if you don't mind me asking? Have you ever applied for a tourist visa or something like that? Okay, so this is what you have to do when you apply for a Canadian visa, Sandeep.
Right.
I had to give my entire bank account statement of 3 years for applying for a Canadian tourist visa. I am a permanent resident now, but before that, when I used to go to travel, you have to give 3 years of your bank account statements.
Right.
You have to give some reservations that you're making over there. You have to give income tax returns. You have to give property documents.
Right.
They literally take everything from you.
Yes.
And they have a problem when India, for its own territorial integrity,
Yes.
tells a Khalistani to say, you will not do anything that will harm India. I mean, Canada has no locus standi. Honestly, as an Indo-Canadian, I find it borderline embarrassing now that I have to come on national television and defend the indefensible. There is no defense of this. It's like, abhi main apna muh kidhar chupau is my situation. Like, where do I hide my face now?
Right, absolutely. And we were on the show, we had a former Punjab police officer on the show yesterday who's been repeatedly denied a visa by the Canadian authorities because he had served in the Punjab police, and they say that they were responsible for human rights violations, and you were, posted in certain parts of Punjab which were disturbed areas, and therefore we deny you the visa. And he was going there for a golf tournament or something like that. So it's amazing. And now when India does the same, we just ask visa applicants to say that you don't support the cause of Canada. Khalistan, the Canadians start crying foul. Which is what the story in the Canadian media very recently said. But Ambassador Manju said, very interesting state of play here with Canada facing very grievous charges of foreign interference. The Chinese have been interfering big time, as Kushal is someone who's been tracking the story for a long time. But the blame always gets put on India. Is Justin Trudeau trying to divert attention from his failings onto India? There's repeated number of attacks on India, that India is trying to manipulate things, foreign interference, assassinating so-called members of, a peace-loving Khalistani terrorists who've taken shelter in Canada. Ambassador said.
Yeah, absolutely. You put it very well. The peace-loving terrorists who are who have shelter, who have been given shelter and protection in Canada. I think, yes, it is. It looks very much like he's trying to divert attention from the real issues that are there,
right,
and the failings and the economic hardship that people are facing, and he is trying, for whatever reason, I think it's under the influence of these supporters, so-called Khalistani supporters, on which his party has been dependent for quite some time to remain in the government, whether from inside or outside. But I think what he seems to not understand is that, or accept maybe, that even, these Khalistanis are not going to stand by him. They're standing by themselves, for themselves.
Right.
From what I could see. And I also saw, I don't know if it was a fake video or a real video, showing that a group of these Khalistani supporters were saying, in which part of Canada, I'm not sure, saying Canada belongs to us and the white man should go from here. This is our land.
Right.
And so something to that effect. So that was something which, I don't know if it's fake or not, but it's something which, if he wants to support them so much, then I think he should let them stay there. He's only letting them stay, but to have their own enclave or something there.
Kushal has a point, Ambassador. Ambassador Kushal Mehra wanted to just
No, I just wanted to back the ambassador. Yeah. Ambassador, it is absolutely real. It was in a Nagar Kirtan. What happened was this guy was shooting, Indi Johal hai uska naam, and he was just shooting a TikTok and he was talking in Punjabi, and there was so his version of the story, I'm just giving you the entire version, was a bunch of racists came and started abusing him.
Right.
As you know, right now, mass immigration is a giant problem in Canada.
Yes.
And then in response to them said, you white people, his words, not mine. And, and yes, he did that. You white people, he purposely made people into people.
Right.
You go back, this is our country. So I'm just giving you the entire context.
Right.
It was not a fake video. A lot of Khalistanis have tried to spin it around, and especially Khalistani adjacent media sites. They just did a hit job on me recently. They accused me of being part of a protest where I was not even present physically. Right. So they are known to spin things around. I just wanted to back Ambassador, nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely, Kushal. But serious threats to Canada's sovereignty, because President Trump has also claimed Canada as a 51st state, as we were just discussing, and called Justin Trudeau the governor of the 51st state, and that's a running joke there. It's the second time that he's cracked that. So I mean, I thought, Ambassador, that it was actually a fake comment. comment. Somebody had, manufactured a comment attributing it to Donald Trump and, put it out there on social media. It's hard to believe but the way things are going in Canada, it's you can't tell truth from, fiction. But Tilak Jha, this point that Kushal made, and of course, Ambassador said as well, the fact that Canada seems to be pointing away from its own failings, the so-called foreign interference, which is very grievous. The kind of reports that are piling up of the Chinese literally influencing members of parliament to create this pro-China nexus within the Canadian government. Is Justin Trudeau trying to buy time for him and his government?
We have to also put in the context that if you see the Chinese and the Canadian issue, this has been going on for quite some time now. The Chinese have a situation in Xinjiang and Uyghur minority, the way it is treated, they are treated in China, and Canadians have been at the forefront of criticizing them.
Yes.
At the same time, they also have issues related to Huawei and 5G networks and others. So I think we have to understand this in context. And also at the same time, I think we also remember, if you go back to the year 2021, when there was this conservative MP, Kenny Chiu, who brought in a bill called Foreign Influence Registry Act, which was famous as Bill C-282. I mean, so these have been there, where they have been trying to sort of target Canadian politicians and Canadian stakeholders who possibly are playing a role for supporting China's geopolitical thing. Yes. And at the same time, I think we also have to understand that the Chinese are somebody who are into geopolitics very much.
Right.
They are in the geopolitics to the extent that they had this something called Operation Fox Hunt.
Yes.
It was a global covert operations which was conducted by Beijing. There is absolutely no hiding on that point. And they have been trying to sort of threaten and repatriate Chinese dissidents to mainland China, and they have been trying to do it all over the world, including in Western countries. That's where the biggest amount of this operation has been at its top, because that's where the technology remains. That's where the Chinese have been trying to sort of get an edge. So I think when this debate came up, I think the first thing that came to my mind that this was not something new. This has been going on for quite some time. There are a significant number of Chinese, 1.7 million to be precise,
yes.
And they, compared to the number of Indians, of course, their influence is relatively far less significant. That's something that's true for most of the other Western countries as well, where Indian immigrants, even with less number of population, their participation comes across as a much forthright. They're all at the forefront of it.
Right.
So I think behind this clutter, what we also see is that Trudeau's insecurity, and of course the Chinese insecurity. We also have to bring in this context the gentleman called Donald Trump,
yes.
who is just across the border. There are new situations emerging. He is going to target China for sure, and here we are witnessing another development in Canada in terms of elections coming, Trudeau's vulnerability, and of course the India and Khalistani issue. So right. Trudeau is, these agendas are guided by domestic politics to a great extent.
Absolutely.
And absolutely no doubt about that. But I think one major casualty that has been amid all this debate is that no country, either Russia or China or Canada or even America, any of these countries are not really thinking of the world as in the way they used to and the way they should be doing geopolitics. Their domestic considerations are sort of setting their international agenda. This is such a beautiful state. We want to be
absolutely very inward-looking countries there. But Kushal, what are Justin Trudeau's compulsions right now? Jan 20th is approaching. It's just a little over a month away. So are you going to be applying for a US visa the next time you want to visit Canada, or?
You know what the running joke in Canada is? That, man, I wish Trump gets it, because every Canadian worth their weight in gold eventually end up in America anyways. Look at all the famous Canadians, right?
Yes.
How many people know that?
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
William Shatner.
So many. Like Bryan Adams, all of us.
Mariah Carey.
Yeah. Oh, so many Canadians, man.
Yes.
So many Canadians. So imagine every Canadian must be like, go Donald, go. I'm just kidding.
Right.
The old stock Canadians are actually pretty patriotic, and they will push back if Donald Trump does that. But listen, the biggest problem is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has an epistemic problem.
Yes.
In 2017, to an interview given to the New York magazine, he said Canada is a post-national state.
Right.
You tell me, is the post-national state going to have these problems or not? Where you have ghettoization, where police videos are being made in Punjabi. Listen, I'm an ethnic Punjabi.
Right.
All right, I love my language. I'll speak Punjabi in India or with my relatives in Canada. I don't want the Canadian police to stop speaking in English and address me in Punjabi. I find that deeply condescending, but that's what Justin Trudeau's post-national state has done to Canada. And foreign interference, mark my words, is just a convenient tool of the Canadian terminological terrorism that confuses you so much. Listen, what foreign interference? India has a right to stop people from coming to India. Canada rejects 20 times more visas than India rejects.
Exactly.
So it's ridiculous. So you have to laugh it off, but at the same time, I repeat, remember this, post-national state. This is what happens when you are a post-national state.
This is what happens when you're a post-national state, indeed. And, Kushal, I must quickly add that a lot of people are secretly delighted that the MEA had been working so hard to keep all these elements out of India. And here we were debating, look, they're not doing anything, they're silent spectators, and there is this Khalistani terror and all that. And you've also suggested in the past, cancelling OCI cards. For all these, activists, so-called Canadian Khalistani sympathizers. But Ambassador said, you're looking at Canada that's in a phase of terminological terrorism. It's a post-national state. All of these things that Kushal has been piling onto Justin Trudeau's plate. How does the MEA literally respond to this? Do you think what we're doing is the right thing? Is there tougher measures that are called for? Like, for instance, cancelling OCI cards or something like that for all of these people who have families back home, who would like to visit them?
Absolutely, I think we have to do that. If there's no option left but to cancel OCI cards, if this is their attitude. But it doesn't mean that all Sikhs or all of them are in the same category. There are some who are patently, speaking about Khalistan, about establishing.
Yes.
So for those people, and even they've been burning the flag and all kinds of activities which are absolutely against the interest of India. So against those people, because they can be identified, there are many videos of all these people, and they can be identified. So there's definitely, I think, the OCI cards should be cancelled. So that will be one good signal to them that they can't do what they like and still have their sort of ease of travel and coming to India and meeting family, etc. So I think that will be a very strong message. And for as far as the Trudeau government is concerned, I think we've tried to put pressure. We've already brought down our diplomatic engagement, and our bilateral engagement has been affected quite badly. And we no longer have our High Commissioner there. So I think already we have taken some measures, but yes, OCI cards for these people particularly, to prevent them from coming into India, will send a message to them that it's not business as usual and they can't do what they like and still have the facilities and have the privilege of traveling to India at whim. So I think they will get that message if we do that. But that is a call that the government has to take. But I think it would be a good message and a good signal to these elements who really should understand that they cannot get away with this kind of rhetoric and this kind of terror-related not jingoism, is a kind of separatist talk that they're constantly indulging in India activity that they're constantly talking about.
Right.
So I think it's a clear message to them. And
but Kushal, the government of India has not been cancelling any OCI cards yet, but that is an option that is on the table at some point.
Not just cancellation of OCI cards, it has to now start asking legit questions from the Canadian government as far as trade policy is concerned. I want to remind each and every one of you, I don't remember the exact year, but in the year 2021 or 22, the Municipal Corporation of Brampton had passed a motion condemning the suppression of the farmers in India and giving its support to the farmers' movement. Canada loves to talk about foreign interference. Imagine this scenario. The Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation, BMC, my lovely city, if they pass a motion about what's happening in Canada and a Canadian policy, Would the Canadians like it? This is foreign interference. It's actually Canada that interferes in Indian foreign policy. It's actually Canada that exports Khalistani terrorists now. See, India no longer has a Khalistan problem. And when I say no longer has a Khalistan problem, I mean it's statistically insignificant. Are there Khalistanis? Yes, but it's statistically insignificant. Canada, Sandeep, I have lived there. I do live there. I say this for full responsibility. India should be worried about what Canada and Canadian Khalistanis intend to do in Punjab. And if India does not get its act together, cancel OCIs, stop trade, pressurize them where they are not, we will pay for it dearly in Punjab. And I say this as an ethnic Punjabi, albeit being born and raised in Mumbai. I still love where my ancestors came from. And I'm really worried about Punjab and its security, and Canada is an active threat to that place.
Absolutely, and well put, Kushal. The fact that Canada, I mean, who would have imagined Canada? One thought that all this was in the past, in the 1980s, when there is evidence that they were in contact, in cahoots even, with certain members who bombed Kanishka in 1985, and in 2024, it's taken a far worse turn, as you've just outlined, as Ambassador Seth and Tilak Jha have been telling us. Trudeau's smokescreen, what lies behind that are issues that are of grave concern to the sovereignty of India. But thank you very much for joining us today, Ambassador Manju Seth, Kushal Mehra, and of course Dr. Tilak Jha.